we have had several of the Peacemaker group involved in various Occupy events. The panel has people involved in all sorts of aspects of the Occupy movement. One of the things I learned was it's not sort of one big movement, but Occupy Minneapolis has subgroups, and we've asked them to talk about what they've been doing, maybe how they got involved. So here we go with Mary Lynn Murphy.
I've been with Occupy Minneapolis since its inception. I'd like to move on to the panel now. Each of these people represents one of the committees of Occupy, and I'll name them because there are a number of them. There's the Occupy Homes Group, the Neighborhood Democracy Project, the Wealthy Human Village, the Events Committee, the Wednesday Night Check-In Group, the Welfare Rights Committee, the Media Group, the Outreach Group, and the Health and Wellness Committee. Kat Solonic, down at the end, is an active member of Occupy Homes, and she is a dynamo of human energy in the Occupy movement. Occupy Homes Minnesota organizes to defend our neighbors and communities and community members from unjust foreclosures and evictions in Minnesota. Kat Solonic has organized with Occupy Homes since their committee moved from public spaces to the homes of Minnesotans. The whole movement has grown from one campaign to a national narrative-setting organization featured on Democracy Now!, MSNBC, the Huffington Post, and many other national and international media outlets. Occupy Homes Minnesota is setting a precedent for the Occupy movement in general and for all American people to stand up to the big banks.
So Occupy Homes started in November when Monique, a white woman from North Minneapolis, came to a General Assembly down at Occupy Minneapolis, which had been gathering to try to figure out all these different demands and like where to go with each one. And because there's so many important issues, right? As you guys learn at these Lemonade and Learn sessions. And Monique came and wanted to know what people would be interested in doing around her house. She was in foreclosure, but willing to fight back. And so people there decided, all right, what could we do to move from this public space into this house? And we started by having a lot of people sleeping at her house and building community that way. We learned later that it wasn't totally necessary to have people all sleeping in a house to defend it. And we started instead to just go and canvass that old school civil rights era, traditional, just knocking on doors and saying, hey, we're here, join us, come to a barbecue. A lot of our actions are planned and started through barbecues and just sharing meals together. It's a pretty Midwestern experience. And then when it comes time, we will plan marches and events against the bank's indirect action. We use several creative tactics, everything from going to their house for a visit, so marching directly to the CEO of the bank's house, to dressing as pirates and doing theatrics in the headquarters. So we have a lot of fun with our actions, but in the end, what has worked and been most important has been the community really coming together at these meetings around a homeowners campaign, right? So Occupy started organizing with them as soon as they got their eviction notice posted up on their door. I remember we would sit and wait and watch the house for the sheriff to come and post this notice on the door. And it was really a beautiful experience for me because the shifts that I would sit there and watch, I sat with homeowners who were facing foreclosure themselves, which is a really beautiful thing because so many people feel a lot of shame around foreclosure, about being underwater and having a hard time affording their life, right? But I got to sit there and talk to them about what they were going through while defending a home for someone else. It's really powerful stuff. So anyway, this notice got posted and we started around-the-clock occupation, meaning there's always a few people in the house. If the sheriffs came to evict, we would send out a text that went to hundreds of people, send out emails and phone calls. We had many phone trees set up through churches, and through our own networks. And we get 100 or so people to show up in a split second. The first really dramatic raid where they got people out of the house, we always got back in, was at 4 a.m. And they took a battery ram to the doors and blew them into the house. And we brought those down to the sheriff's office and said, is this what taking care of Minnesotans looks like? And they washed their hands of it. They said, this is up to NPD now to watch the house. Because the sheriffs didn't want to deal with it. They knew it was wrong. I spoke to many deputies personally, and they knew it was immoral. So they got out of it, and we were confronted with the MPD after that, and private security companies protecting the house. And now where we are with the house is we had taken a road trip out to Pittsburgh. Their bank was PNC, located their headquarters in Pittsburgh. So the whole family, myself and a couple other organizers went out to Pittsburgh and spoke with the bankers. However, they wouldn't give us enough time of day to have us talk to actually someone who could do anything about it. They had us talk to the head of their security of their building and their PR representative. So they couldn't modify a mortgage anyway. So after that, we were pretty outraged and decided it was time to make a house call. And we visited the CEO's house out in Pittsburgh. And after that, they started answering our phone calls. I think it was because we got their home and cell phone numbers and had hundreds of people calling them. So now we're at a point where we are trying to get Freddie Mac, who got the mortgage in a sheriff's sale, to negotiate with the family. And it's kind of an exciting pivot point because we've galvanized so much support around their home.
Ben Painter has been active from day one with the Occupy movement. Ben was raised along with his two brothers and a sister by a conservative single mother. Being on welfare was considered a shame, but was necessary. Over the years, Ben's understanding of the injustices of the society in which we live has grown greatly. Knowing what it means to grow up poor in America, Ben was angered by the double standard and lack of accountability of bankers and joined Occupy in Minneapolis. Ben has been working as a math tutor to pay off large amounts of student debt and to get back to school and finish his math degree that he was working on at the College of St. Scholastica. He has worked closely with Occupy Homes and on many other projects related to Occupy Minneapolis. He is one of those who was arrested on April 7th simply for marching in the street.
Okay, my name's Ben. So, I actually got involved in Occupy on day 2. I was never really politically active very much. I grew up very conservatively, and it took me a while to start to change my views. And then when I started to change my views and I saw how the world really worked, I was getting very angry, and I had nowhere to put this emotion. And I saw what the banks were doing to people, and realizing the way I'd grown up, just how hard it is, how much of a struggle it was for my single mother to raise kids. And I mean, Monique White was a great example for me. I don't think there was someone I could have felt closer to in this movement. A single mother raising kids, trying to stay in her home, and the banks are doing everything to get her out of her home. It just seemed like a complete unjust system. Just something that we should not have in our society. And anyways, so Occupy, I just, as soon as I saw it on the news, I headed down there, and I ended up staying that first night, my first night there. And just so you guys get an overview of the history of kind of how it worked, we started out just occupying the Government Center Plaza in front of the Hennepin County Courthouse. And yeah, it was an amazing atmosphere. We had people. We would provide food for ourselves. We had medical care we provided for ourselves. Anyone who had a skill would share it with the community. I would walk around at night and run security, and I would, like, if it started raining, cover people with tarps. I didn't have other money to give, but there was things I could do, and everyone did what they could, and we had an amazing community there. But we also wanted to grow, and Occupy Homes is one of the things that grew out of that. And I think the idea was to empower ourselves and each other, and that's the really moving thing about Occupy, is I'm not here to win something for Monique White. I mean, I am, but I'm here in solidarity with Monique White. I'm here to help people like Monique to stand up for themselves, because I can't do this alone. We can't do this alone as Occupy. We need communities to start standing up for themselves, and that's what that's what it has moved me to get involved in this. I was talking to Chuck earlier, and he's talking about we want justice. We don't want charity. We don't need charity. We need true justice. We need communities to stand up for themselves and for justice. And when the rich or the powerful abuse their power, there needs to be a way to counterbalance that. And I think that weight has, it's been stronger in the past, and I think we need to make it strong again. Yeah, so I've been involved in Occupy Homes. I haven't had a criminal record before this. Now I'm facing a few different arrest charges. One for marching in the street. I was arrested for obstructing traffic. And then I was arrested at the Cruz home twice. One on the night that the police broke in and smashed the door in. I was there, and I shouldn't have said that. Well, whatever. I was arrested, and it's just it's a completely unjust thing that with so many people in our communities that are standing against this, politicians will not listen because we have set up a system where there's no incentive for them to listen. The incentive comes from the banks. The incentive comes from the people that can give money to people. Basically, Monique White can't afford to have a lobbyist in DC. Okay, she can't afford it, but any bank can, and they have many. So I hope that's something that people pick up from this. Is it's not just about me, it's about you. I want everyone to be powerful in themselves and stand for justice.
Malia Burkhart has been with Occupy from day one. She is a teacher, an artist, a songwriter, a healer, and a community activist. Malia has been part of the Occupy Minneapolis, serving in a variety of roles. Most recently, she has been part of the core team launching the Wealthy Human Village. The village is built of both ancient and new communal structures. People gathering at the village are committed to serving the community. The values of this project are rooted in respecting and protecting the earth, bridging cultural differences, and discovering and strengthening alliances. Malia is now working in a gardening project. If you need gardening instruction, contact her. She's involved in reclaiming our independence from the corporate food system.
So my name's Malia, and I showed up at the plaza on the first night and ended up cleaning some paintbrushes that were left out. I'm an artist, so I have a thing about paintbrushes being left out to dry. I get obsessive about finding water to stick them into. Anyway, so I guess maybe that says something about my personality, that I'm just like someone who has to be doing something to be feeling happy about myself. One of the things that's been greatly on my heart my entire life is the Earth and the planet, as well as some of the ways that we are implicated as Americans, here, I just want to read this to you. I started a blog, and this is an excerpt from what I wrote. I'm part of the 1%, and you are too. As people living in the United States, by the level at which we consume resources, and by our access to a kind of power to change things, compared to the rest of the world, we are the 1%. Also, to the rest of the species on the planet, who would like a say in how we are running things, humans are the 1%. We owe it to them to speak up and also to listen. I think that a lot of what we're seeing in the world and the planet with the slowness with which we're responding to climate change has to do with the amount of wield and power that the moneymakers have over our political system and over the ways that we as humans should be galvanizing ourselves to come together for our children, you know. They're going to be dealing with whatever we don't do now. And this has been really distressing to me. Can sometimes lead to a feeling of paralysis and hopelessness and just like it's way too big for any of us. The Wealthy Human Village is all about that. We're creating the path by living it in whatever ways that we can come together to create change in the smallest of ways. We started a garden. We started a farm up in North Branch, collaborating with the Women's Environmental Institute to grow food for the Native American community to help them fight diabetes, as well as providing, you know, we're taking some for ourselves and most of it we're giving away also to Occupy, and as our crops get in we'll figure out where else we want to distribute. But it's one of the ways that we can reclaim our power. One of the things that became apparent to me is like how much sense does it make to be saying bad corporation, bad corporation, bad corporation, and then going to Target and buying my underwear, you know. Food is one of the major ways that we sustain ourselves. I think it's one thing that made it possible during the last Great Depression for people to pull through because people had a lot of food growing skills. We're losing those skills. And I think it's really of utmost importance for all of us to practice. How do we relate to the earth and support growth? And it also has the other important part of our group is the process by which we come together and build solidarity with people who are really different than ourselves. I've been working with Heart of the Beast Theater for the last 10 years and have really learned a lot about the power of art and working together on a project for bringing people together. And so that's another aspect of what the Wealthy Human Village is about, is creating containers and creating ways that people can work together, and through the doing of a project, how that helps us come together across our differences. We are up against some pretty big forces. The structures of greed, imbalance, power, control, and money are monolithic and centuries old. Last fall, we managed to create a few cracks in the sidewalk of oppression. I wonder if further demolition could be given to the weed seeds to organize through some different strategies, ones that say yes more than they say no. There is something happening in the culture, something that desperately wishes to be born. Perhaps the most powerful thing we can do right now is to slow down, to notice these little sprouts and give them space to grow.
Silk Holdridge has been a peace activist for 30 years. He's a publisher, an editor. He wrote the Move to Amend flip card that some of you have seen, and the Why Occupy flip card. Silk has been a businessman. He started several companies. He started an electronic publishing company. He had a craft company and an over-the-road trucking company. He was offered a job in the corporate world but rejected it. He also administered a Minnesota Montessori Teacher Training Institute and applied Montessori's principle to an open space process in the high schools, to a men's support group, and to the Minnesota Alliance of Peacemakers.
I got a phone call from Mary Lynn, and she said, well, we need somebody old on the panel. And of course, you know, I'm right at close to 80, almost 80. And so I was wondering why she asked me, you know, and I thought maybe it's because she wants me to apologize for my generation's contribution to the mess we're in. I'm not sure. But I can apologize, and I do apologize. And what Malia just said about we're the 1%, yes, I'm complicit. I am complicit with the way things are. And so I thought, well, what can I do to change, help change, and move us in a different direction? And that's what led to this little card that you have in front of you there. I always carry one with me. That's one reason why we reduced it to a card, because I have one in my billfold and one in my shirt pocket. And so I just pass it out whenever I see the opportunity. That's the way it works. I'm hoping that you have questions about Occupy. I have questions about Occupy. I am not an in-the-street person like these folks are. and I respect so much what they do. They're sometimes called the first tier occupiers, which means I'm second tier, right? If I'm not in the streets. And I'll accept that. I don't care what they call me. You know, I just felt like I had to do something to help this cause. And so as Occupy proceeded, it was really strong in the beginning, started September 17th, 2011, not so long ago, not even a year old. And boy, it came out of the chute like crazy. It went nationwide. In fact, it went national, international. And I think there are 50,000 people that showed up in Madrid supporting Occupy. 50,000. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get 50,000 people out? We fill our stadiums with 50,000 people. Why can't we do it with Occupy? As you know, the people that protested at Sukata Park in New York were courageous in naming our root cause behind the crisis of our time. And let's just read that first panel, because that's what it is. But as I see it, as they saw it, so I'm just kind of using their words somewhat. But birth of the Occupy Wall Street movement, for those of you who haven't heard of this before. Society is out of balance, and millions are suffering. On September 17, 2011, thousands gathered near Wall Street to protest a rigged system, tearing society apart. Rigged by big money, the 1%. Defined here as the greediest, richest of the rich, accumulating wealth with little or no regard for the 99% or the planet. So that's a lot of people's understanding of who the 99% are. But we want to get what your opinion is, whether or not you feel like you're part of the 99%, and who does the 1%? Is it just wealth? I'm not against wealth. Wealth is good in many ways. It's just when you get addicted to it and to the exclusion and the harm of everything else. That's when it's not good. But the last sentence, what they're doing, one sentence, oh, it's so hard to reduce things to one sentence. The 99% is waking up now to disrupt big money's game plan and to mobilize the bringing about of a society that works for everyone. That's pretty powerful. It's a dual purpose. And they're doing a lot to interrupt the game plan, I tell you, across the nation. And I'm thankful for that. I had two questions in my mind when I wrote the card. I saw the Occupy movement running into some problems. One problem was image. Because of police brutality, knocking down their tents and arresting them and getting them out of any location they wanted to assemble in. And we have the right to assemble according to the Constitution, so the winter came along, things slowed down, there was a drop-off in participation, so it was weighing heavily on the movement. That was one thing. And the other was participation. I saw a drop-off in participation. I felt like a lot of people were not identifying themselves as part of the 99%, that the occupiers were those people over there. But it's not me. So I wanted to change that perception. So I have three purposes for the card. First purpose, it's designed to give people who read it a better understanding of the root cause underlying the crisis of our time, as well as the broad scope and complexities of its impact on every aspect of our lives. I think I have 7 or 8 areas that are affected by big money and control. 2, it gives the reader a rough idea how the occupiers function by modeling a democratic way of being as the way forward for making change. And there's a list of principles in the card that they follow in doing that. Number 3, the card is inspirational. It encourages one to find what has heart and meaning for oneself and to take responsibility for it. Follow your bliss, said historian Joseph Campbell. And the card closes with some reasons for being hopeful. So that's the card. My time's just about up. Recommend you do this though with the card. Pass a person 2 cards, not 1. Why? Because if you say, take this other card, find a friend, and go to a restaurant, have breakfast, and talk about it. Have a conversation. Margaret Wheatley says, social change always begins with a conversation. And out of a conversation, you never know what's going to hit you, what's going to strike you. Like a match. What's going to light the flame under me? So I think the conversation is more important than just someone sitting home in their chair, easy chair, reading the card. And I think I'm going to close with that because of time factor. I got other things to say. You're going to have to ask the questions.